Let's render some chrome. For chrome, the most important thing is reflections. So let's start with the camera, as usual. Okay, just a simple VRay cam. And I want to rotate the rim like this. Right. So I want to render it on a black background. And I want some nice reflections to show off the chrome material. Okay. Just gonna set up my VRay RT. And we're good to go. So I want some nice reflections all around the wheel. To do that, I'm gonna use a cylinder around the wheel. So let's create a cylinder. Make sure it's just a bit larger than the distance from the wheel to camera. And position it like this. Okay, let's increase the number of sides just to make it smoother. Alright. And let's delete the caps. Okay. And finally, we just need to flip the normals. Okay, you can just select the element and click this flip button here. So the normals are facing the wheel instead of the outside. Right. And let's assign VRay light material to the cylinder. Just drag and drop. Turn on the active shade and see how it looks. Right, looks like we need to adjust our camera settings first. Okay, and turn off the vignetting, change the light balance to neutral, and reduce the shutter speed to 20. Right, so it looks very boring at the moment. To make it more interesting, we can use a map in the VRay light material color slot. So instead of using the gradient ramp as usual, I'm gonna use something slightly different. I'm gonna create a custom HDRI in Photoshop. So launch your Photoshop, create a new file. I'm gonna use these dimensions and make sure you set it to 32-bit color mode. Right? And create the file. Okay. I'm gonna create a new layer and make this sort of a ground plane. So make a selection and let's fill it with a regular gradient from black to white. Something like this maybe. Okay, maybe let's make it darker. Right. So this is sort of a ground. Let's fill the background now. Again, I'm going to use a gradient. And I want to make the top part darker. Right, and let's blur it a bit. Just to make the transition smoother. Okay, that's good. And let's create a new layer. And paint in some white stuff. Okay, I'm gonna increase the intensity. Okay, let's say by 5 stops or so. And add a circular spot over here. Right. Let's reduce the size, reduce the intensity, and paint over here. And finally, let's blur the whole thing. Okay, like that. Okay, let's select the background layer and use the levels to lighten it up a bit. Okay, like this. I think this could be a decent starting point. Let's save it. I'll save it in my textures as an HDR file, and let's name it BW. Okay. So go to your VRay light material, select the color slot, and select the VRay HDRI map here. And now select your map. Okay. Now let's change the mapping type to 3D Max Standard. And unfortunately we can't see how exactly it is positioned. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new dummy material with the regular bitmap in the diffuse slot. And use the same HDRI map here. So now when I swap the material for this regular one, okay, you can see the preview. Looks like we need to extend it quite a bit. Okay, let's use the canvas size tool, Ctrl-Alt-C, and let's extend it by 100% in the width. Okay, I'm gonna merge down all the layers with Ctrl-E. I'm just gonna transform these sides like this. Just extend them until they fill the whole thing. Okay. And resave the image. Back to 3D Max. Looks a bit better, still not perfect. Let's extend a bit more. Okay, that was a bit too much. Let's extend by 50%. All right. And resave. Back to max, and this looks good. Right, now I'm gonna reapply my original material and make a quick render. Okay, well, it looks okay. You can play around with the position of the cylinder. Maybe scale it down a bit. And let's increase the intensity of the HDRI map. Let's try 5. 3 maybe. I think 3 works fine here. Alright. So that's a good start. Now we just need to fix our background. So let's make a plane. Regular plane for the background. Rotate it the correct way and position just behind the wheel. Now I'm gonna go to my object properties, general, and disable receive shadows. And cast shadows as well. Alright, and I want the background to be quite dark. So let's make a very dark VRay material. Maybe set the diffuse to 1. And that's nice. And finally, I'm gonna add a little light along the center of this plane, just to create some sort of a gradient lighting behind the wheel. So a thin long VRay light here, move it closer to the plane. Let's make it invisible, of course. We don't need that black stripe there. And just bump up the intensity. Okay, you can adjust the size of the gradient by moving the light closer or further from this background plane. You can also rotate it if you wish. For example, like that. Let's make it a bit stronger. That's too much. Let's make it weaker instead. Alright. So that's how you get a nice render of chrome. The main thing is the reflections. You can try rotating the cylinder to see if you can get something more interesting in there. Just to control the highlights. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like this. Okay, now just set up your high quality render settings and you can render your final image.